how do you describe Dungeons and Dragons? Look, I guess it goes back to some of that stuff I was saying earlier. It's a story, so with rules.
I've no effing idea about Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons is an improvisational group storytelling game with a dungeon master. This is hard to focus. Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, I remember, was really big in the 70s and 80s. It was one of those things I thought, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing a game like that.
When I was a kid, I saw my first D&D box, a little red box, the basic set.
I think one of my first questions, do I have to wear a cape?
You don't have to wear a cape in Dungeons and Dragons. That is a common misconception.
It's not all about killing 500 orcs and getting all the experience and going up 28 levels. It's all about what's happened on that journey.
Kept thinking, could be an interesting background for a murder plot thriller film script as well.
I thought cooler or smarter kids started playing this game, so I joined them one lunchtime, but I sort of got all bogged down in the stats.
Pardon?
There was a bunch of kids who would sit outside the music block in capes and play it.
No cloaks.
I had a crush on one of them very briefly.
It's so open-ended. The possibilities are so limitless in terms of what kind of adventure it's going to be.
Well, you've got to get the chicks in.
Yeah. It's a place where you can be creative and be different.
The essence is storytelling, and that's what the game's about.
More than our other narrative shows, we wanted it to be a step forward and feel like a musical in that old sense.
I mean, we're trying things in this show that we haven't really tried before. Toying with the idea of moments that aren't funny, for example, which is hard, very hard.
You know, that ability to be able to tell a story beyond just telling a joke is, you know, that's pretty much at the heart of every comedian.
It's like, how do you tell people that actually you will dig this? It's not just for nerds, but as well as do justice to the fact that you're taking something that is precious to nerds and putting it out there, you know.
If you look at an old musical, it might have a lot of comedy in it and a lot of stupid characters, but it would also have, you know, some heartfelt songs, and you know. So at the end of the show, you'd have had sort of fun and, you know, enjoyed spectacle, but you'd also like have cared about the characters and had moments of sadness and happiness for them.
As a little girl, it was my dream to be in a musical.
Really?
You know, it's like, let's write a show about D&D, and you know, D&D means a lot to me. So I'm going to say, oh, well, okay, what have I got to say about that?
They turn down this little dark alley, and there's a set of stairs that go up to this doorway on the second floor.
I reached for the knob of the door.
Yeah, there is no knob, by the way. It's just
story of my life.
It's a featureless, featureless door.
The gayest ranger in the city. Push it open?
You could try it, yeah.
I just tried to push it open.
It's locked, stroke and or barred.
Is there a lock?
There is no lock on this side.
Okay. Is there... Can I run around to see my buddy at the back door there? Is there a back door?
You wish to run around?
Just quickly?
Yeah, okay, you quickly jog around to the other side of the building. There is some windows and stuff, but that's the door in.
That's the only way in?
That's the only way in.
How many stories is it? Can we...
It's a 4-story.
Is there any sort of scaling opportunity? We've got rope.
I don't know. Do you want to break into this man's house, or are you trying to...
Isn't this guy like some badass? Do we really
well, we haven't knocked yet, have we?
No. You have skipped the knocking process.
All right, I know.
It's exciting to DM people who are that engaged, in a way, because they bring, you know, you've got 4 very strong personalities at the table, and that's always a challenge.
It started with E.T. If you want to start to get into when things started, it actually started with, you know, like, thanks to causality, it started with the Big Bang. Everything's connected, you see? Like, it's like some sort of cosmic scissor sex that's going on. You can cut that out.
Don't cut that out.
There's this guy called Ben Northey who we actually know because he used to play in bands with some friends of ours. He's a saxophone player.
We started off as a cranking sax player in a cover band that we used to get up and, you know, go to see a lot, but also get up and sing with occasionally. And then years later we bump into him and he's all sort of established and he's got a real, you know, respected sort of job in the arts and stuff. Like, he actually grew up.
He's conducted the London Symphony and shit.
And I used to play Nintendo 64 with him.
How about that, eh?
One summer.
Wow.
In '96.
Yeah, and look how far we've all come.
And he was like, let's do a show. He came to a tripod show. He was really excited. Let's do a show. And of course, rather than do the kind of commercially sort of viable thing, which is just a show of our songs with an orchestra, we decided to not do that and wait till we had an idea. The idea was, why don't we do something based on these characters that we invented for the D&D based website that we had created, which we had created because of an idea that was previously going to be for a CD.
Yes, I think it was also a really good way of still getting Scott interested in tripod still.
Yeah.
Because if we just talk about stuff that he likes to talk about, then we've got him on side.
Yeah, that's true. I think the first thing we did was we would just go and sit in this cafe in De Grave Street in the city and just sort of chat about what the story might be about.
So the first story, the original draft, like number 1 of 50 billion, was there's 3 of us. I'm the dungeon master. In a game where you collectively tell a story and the dungeon master facilitates it, I was actually trying to really control the story. And Gatesy and Jon are both dudes who actually don't understand D&D and keep taking it in comically weird ways.
So he's trying to make the story go a certain way and we just keep fucking it up. You know, mostly because of just ignorance and a desire to have fun.
For example, Yoni wants to be a dog.
Just a dog. And part of this dog clan, and then there was this big battle where he like killed all these other dogs from this other dog clan, and
I'm like, armour won't fit dogs, you can't be a dog. And he's like, I'm going to be a dog. And then I'm like, all right, be a dog. And then the first scene, I'm like, you are cursed with the body of a man.
So I clung to that.
Yeah, so did I.
Very hard.
Damn
it. It's still in the show.
I get my way because the armour will now fit him and it all suit, you know, and I can sort of continue. And that sort of sets the tone for the whole rest of the story where I'm trying to control the thing, right?
My character was called Magnox Loudface, and I was this warrior with a massive sword, too heavy for me to actually lift.
Gates is the security guy on the tavern, on the village tavern, right? And he's really muscled, you know, he's that classic muscled armour guy. But he doesn't have a taste for adventure. He doesn't. That's his thing. And again, as the DM, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's an adventure game. And Gates is like, no, I'm quite happy being the security guy in the tavern. You know, I'm just a humble muscle man. I have no ambitions in that regard. So straight away, I'm like, as the DM, I'm like, oh, these guys are fucking idiots. Yoni's character, right, the dog with a man's body, was trying to get into the tavern. Okay, Gates, he wouldn't let him in because it's no dogs allowed. And that's how they establish their friendship, because it's the first time Yoni's character's ever been treated like a dog. Normally he's treated like a man who's been cursed with the head of a dog, but this is the first man who's ever said, you're a dog, you're not allowed into my tavern, right? So this wandering, nuggety sort of, you know, outcast adventurer has finally found a friend in this humble muscle man. So, I mean, I love it. I think it's a great story.
My favourite bit with that sword was it's a big sword that hangs over an armoury shop. Yeah. And so it's not really an actual sword.
It's a sign. It's like at a lawnmower shop and you see a huge lawnmower.
And Jon says, it's a sign, and I go, I know.
It's not just a sword. It's a sign.
Love that bit.
Yeah. You know, so his sword ends up being so heavy that he's dragging it along. Like he can't even lift it.
Which helps in that first draft, which helps us because don't we get lost and we just follow to get out of the
That's
thing,
right, it's like Hansel and Gretel because he's dragged this sword all the way and then we get lost and then we realise that we just have to follow the groove all the way back. Yeah, it's nice.
Anyway, I'll create a character called this left-hand maid of the lowland. She comes, steals Gates' heart, literally, and she flies away.
So there's a Melbourne singer-songwriter called Claire Bowditch, and we were sort of half jokingly calling the character in the first draft of the show Claire Bowditch, like that was actually going to be the character's name.
Yeah.
I don't know where the idea came from, but we just kind of went, wouldn't it be good to do a show with someone else where it wasn't just the three of us? So we're like,
Claire
well,
Bowditch, for instance.
well, originally, early on in the process, it was like, let's just have a wish. Let's just imagine it's Claire Bowditch.
Again, because just as Scott was falling asleep, just go, Claire Bowditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
What?
She would be good. So we wrote. Well, actually, a lot of those early scripts have just said, and then Claire Bowditch says this. I told her about it subsequently, and she started referring to it as Claire the musical, which couldn't have worked, could it?
Claire the musical. Yeah, no brainer.
And then, so this woman has stolen Gates' heart. Luckily, Scott, DM, has written on Yoni's character sheet, you have one spell, and it is the spell which is keep a man alive who has had his heart stolen for 1 year. And it's like, why would you ever need that spell? Well, actually, turns out, it came in handy in scene 1 of the story. And so Yoni saves his life for a year, so he has a year to get his heart back, A, or B, complete his bucket list. It's one of the two.
Bucket list.
Then there's this huge story with all these characters, and there's various adventures that go on trying to find this woman, and they find the woman, eventually, like heaps later, and she gives, they kind of outsmart her. She gives Gates his heart back. She says, and on the journey, he's actually fallen in love with her, right? Because he's like realised that what she's trying to do is get him to live his life and go out, right?
Ironically, in a show about
Dungeons and Dragons.
Shut in a...
Yeah, about shut in. So it ends up being a love story, and then Yoni's like, okay, so where's the main baddie? And I'm like, as a DM, I'm like, no, that was the main baddie. It's a twist. There is no main baddie. This was the story. You meet her, you fall in love with her. And they're like, what? That's fucking bullshit. Don't we have some huge fight with the main baddie? And then from that point on, Act 3 becomes them outsmarting me. Them so convinced that there's a main baddie that they sort of create one separately of what the DM says.
Yeah. And so, why do we have to do that? Why do we have to remain in the place that you have decided that we want to be in?
Anyway, so eventually they get to this place where there's off the map, which is where the whole map thing sort of came from there, where it's just a grid.
I think the thing that monged that story more than anything, well, for me anyway, was I saw this movie that someone had made on the web about D&D, and they had a really similar. It just had a really similar kind of story, like that. The idea that the DM and the players are fighting, but each trying to sort of control the game. So,
and it was very metaphysical. It was like the story had taken on its own. He couldn't. Look, I loved that story, but I can certainly see why we didn't do it.
Can you remember why we sort of binned it?
Yeah.
Binned that draft?
Yeah. I remember very specifically. There was a conversation in Gates' basement, in Gates' other room, where you just said you didn't want to do a story within a story. and so we just tried to be very proactive. It was like, okay, all right, let's write something else instead. But that was the story that actually was about the three characters: the dog head, the man with the heart on the outside of his armour, and the what was I? I was just a DM. I was just like all the other characters.
We had a bit of a draft of this idea, which I think is that first draft where the DM's trying to control the game at that time, and we contacted the orchestra he thought would be most interested, and they're like, nah. A show about Dungeons and Dragons, we can't sell it. We can't get our subscribers to come to that.
Well, if that's the thing, orchestras are always looking for a way to kind of get to a younger audience.
Yeah, right.
Hence their Deep Purple show.
We can get them to come to a whole evening of James Bond themes.
Well, that is true though.
Or Metallica.
That is easy to sell.
The symphony orchestra version.
Metallica,
very easy to sell.
Kiss.
Again, easy to sell.
Whitlam's?
Deep Purple isn't exactly a younger audience.
No, I was making a joke.
Oh shit.
Just going back to Ben Northern. He was involved. Why didn't he end up being involved? What happened with all that?
Well, Ben was really, he was really keen and proactive about coming. You know, he came to some meetings. He tried to put us in touch with the right people and stuff. But I don't know. There was a point at which we started sort of handed it over to other people to try and peddle the show to the ASO and stuff. So I can't tell you what became of that whole conversation.
Excuse me, Ben. I was just wondering what.
Ben, hey, Northey, just one question.
It's a shame we didn't actually end up getting it off the ground. The orchestra version of the show. The orchestra came back to us with a point that I thought was actually, in retrospect, I think about a lot, and that was D&D. It's pretty 30-something, isn't it? Like, can't you do something that's going to appeal to younger people? Can't you do a World of Warcraft opera?
Although some of the best sessions can be when the players rush through, or they do something different, and you have to throw everything away, and you're like, all right, what's going to happen? I've got nothing now. What's going to happen? Okay, other than this. And some of the best sessions can come out of that.
The Microsoft Glee Club had a cover of it. You know, a bunch of men singing our song a cappella. And anyway, at the Consumer Electronics Show, which is this big event in Vegas every year that they have, and it's the one time in the year where the Microsoft CEO gets up and talks about all the products that they're going to have that year. They were going to perform our song at that event. But then the sort of the events company sort of stepped in and went, why don't we get the actual guys who wrote the song?
We're Microsoft.
We're Microsoft. We can do anything.
We can do anything.
Yeah. So they flew us over to Vegas and we did our song, and we met this great guy, J.B. Miller there.
So, J.B. Miller is a man who lives in the States. He books a lot of corporate events. He relaunched ping pong as a hipster sport.
Really?
Yeah. In Vegas. So we're doing this hilarious gig in Vegas for Microsoft that JB booked us for, and we were killing time backstage talking about what our next project was. And we said Dungeons and Dragons, the opera, and he said, that's hilarious, I want to be involved, what a great idea.
After 3 months or so, he called and goes, right, you guys are going to be artists in residence at this place in Massachusetts, and
where they will give you resources and stuff for 2 weeks to premiere this show of yours, Dungeons and Dragons, the opera. And we're like, wow, yes, that sounds like ace fun.
And then we went, shit, we better really get serious and write this show.
I guess that's the big difference, now, from when I first started playing to now, is that I used to write a lot. It was one of the only, when I was in high school, it was really useful for me in terms of, it was my only creative writing outlet. So I didn't particularly like English, I didn't particularly like writing, but Dungeons and Dragons made me write stuff.
Sometimes we do band camp, which is where we do an intensive workshop. We recorded perfectly good songs down at Yoni's folks' place down in Shoreham. Is it Shoreham? Point Leo. Shoreham. But we wrote On Paper down there. We wrote Don't Feel Bad down there. We wrote
my favourite line in the show.
I am not one of you, I am one of me.
Which never gets a laugh.
No, never. But where it was at down at Point Leo was you free the dragon and you and Gatesy are like with the dragon going, Scott's gone off by himself, what an idiot, oh my god, we have to go and help him. And the dragon's like, I can get us there. And then the dragon's like, get on my back. And there's these 2 fully grown men just looking at this sort of diminutive. Yeah, exactly. This is the section of the process leading up to the making of this show was us working out at Moonee Valley in this awesome rehearsal space with a big mirror, which is often a bit of a mistake, I think, putting us in a room with a mirror.
Not me.
No, you love it. Well, I call this the cup and sceptre form of theatre, which we have pioneered today, which has involved a very simple piece of paper into a cone shape, and you may recognise what we like to call a sphere, a stick, a conduit, a bit of fabric.
So we were trying to envisage how we were going to theatrically perform some of these massive epic, like a dragon battle and things.
In our early workshops of the show, which were less about the pictures, the projected stuff, and there was more sort of 3-dimensional kind of puppetry going on.
Theatre Gami.
Hi, this is the making of the wizards right at the beginning from that thing. Little hat goes on there. This unravels to form some kind of gown. And that's our wizard.
That's the wizard.
And you can see his evil hand.
And then
All right.
he gets his sword out. He goes like that. Bash, 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 bash.
We were just peddling. Well, I was peddling theatergami as this new frontier.
We were all
in
into the theatergami, but we kept hitting walls and having to add more bits.
Now, fellas, why not act as the wizards yourselves? I hear Alan ask.
Scale, Alan. Because we couldn't possibly be small enough to look small next to Scott as a tree.
Who will be standing on that chair or something very much like it.
And later on, when we are the wizards...
There we go.
Suddenly,
we're the wizards.
Was it all just an elaborate ploy to be able to use the term theatergami?
Yes. Yes, you know me, yes. And we even said when we were talking to JB Miller overseas, when we were talking to the mass smoker person, just saying, well, we have invented a new theatre.
Yeah. New form of theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe you can move the tail sort of, you know.
Can you take your wing out, Yoni?
Like that.
Yeah, just stretch it. Really.
It was exciting to be working on at the time, but who's to know if it would have worked?
So this was, of course, before Neill and before, you know, the whole overhead projector business.
Getting from that kernel of an idea of let's do something about Dungeons and Dragons to having an adventure on stage, you know, is a difficult process. And
what do you want to know about the dragon?
How great she is.
The people
She's
who have
awesome.
played, you know.
Oh, the casting journey.
We didn't start with Elana, did we?
Maybe I shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Is
is
not
this going to
bad.
hurt? Is this going to hurt?
We went to a gig of Megan Washington.
Megan Washington was opened for
Jackson Jackson.
Jackson Jackson. That's right. So you were
my
there.
ex-band.
You would have been there.
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there.
Scott was chatting to her afterwards and just sort of asked her to, without even talking to us, asked her to do our show.
One of us went to the other two. I think Megan wants to do it. And we're like, cool.
She was like, yeah, awesome, this sounds great.
She started jumping up and down and saying the words, please let me be the girl, in the dragon in the shape of a girl. Please let me be the dragon in the shape of a girl. Jumping up and down.
Very enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic. And we probably worked together about 10 times.
Yeah.
And during which she wrote the Ivory Tower song with Scott.
And certainly I did a lot of little cartoons about, okay, maybe this happens, maybe that happens, and the dragon at that point just became this person with a fringe and glasses. And
then her career just sort of started to go mental because she had an album coming out and she just got too busy. And she, all along, she's like, oh yeah, awesome, this is going to be great.
But the whole time her manager was saying, you know, you can't do this, you're about to release the record. And he was right, Troy, you were right. You were right, you did good managing.
She's still kind of a person who thinks she can do everything all at once.
Don't worry. I'm sure reality has crushed her spirit by now.
Really? But the biz. The biz.
The pressures of the biz.
Pressures of the biz.
It all worked out for the best in the end because Elana
Another glasses wearing fringe just eased into that vacant position.
Because we'd just left our management, who were also producing a lot of our shows, we needed to find an independent producer to work on the show.
Oh, yeah, hello, see? Producer. That's where I was going, subliminally.
The first time I met Marnie was in 96. She was booking a comedy festival program for the St Martin's Youth Arts Centre, where Tripod did our first ever comedy festival show.
Back then you were sort of just bastardising covers. Mainly, I don't know, is that wrong?
No, true.
True. Expiring on the 10th of the 10th. Does that mean it expires at the end of the month or does it mean it expires at the beginning of the month? Answer me!
We got together with Marnie and that was one of the funnest things about doing the show, working with her, because she's an absolute gem and can talk almost anyone into almost anything.
Amazing.
Because when in doubt, just shut down and start again and see if that works. Oh, I have to show you this woman, by the way. You'll love it.
I'd be scared calling her up every now and again. Just like wanting a simple answer to a short question.
You won't get that.
Nah. You're on the phone for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But God, best 15 minutes of your life. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's like being electrically charged.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really...
Then we found Neill, who, we knew through, he'd directed some great Leno and Woodley shows and stuff. And
Take 52.
He's kind of like a similar brain, really.
One has to say that it was an extraordinary kind of an idea, the script. Really, it was an epic film script, and it was written as epic musical theatre.
We were going to be working with Neill in our first show as well.
That's
because
right.
of his work with...
I don't think we could afford him, though.
No.
Is that what happened, or he just couldn't do it?
He was involved in Lost Treasure in Barcus, which was a Perrier Award-winning, world successful kind of Australian comedy act from the 80s. And then, I would say it kind of goes Los Trios, Doug's, and then to our generation.
In doing the show, I thought it was actually really important that I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons, and I thought it's probably really quite important that I'm not an expert. In fact, I prided myself with my neophyte approach. I think I needed to put my hand up a number of times and just say, sorry, don't know what you were talking about, and I don't think the audience will either if you say that. In many ways, in making any show, the director has to be the audience and respond accordingly.
We are in a suburban living room. A game of Dungeons and Dragons is about to begin.
I was thinking of playing a dog with a man's body. Do you want to hear the backstory? So, right, the thing is, everyone just assumes that he's a human with a dog's head, right? But he's not. He's actually a dog who's been cursed with the body of a small man.
So the next step was a public reading of the piece.
Okay, this story starts at the dawn of time.
That was an interesting idea because I actually really still at that point in time didn't have a handle of how we could actually achieve this piece of epic theatre.
We had a small season booked in Melbourne to just sort of do the script in front of an audience.
I contacted Vanessa when we were trying to work out venues for Melbourne Comedy Festival, whether, this show would be something that they would perhaps program into the Fairfax. Looking for a theatre, I guess. Hang on,
Yeah, we're gonna...
Yeah.
Is there one we're forgetting? In paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah. There's a fourth one. Dynamite. It beats everything.
Interesting.
Well, why don't we just have another round?
Wow. What are the odds?
From that conversation I had with her, she contacted me and said, okay, would you be interested in doing a rehearsed reading type thing in the Fairfax, just 4 nights?
My friend Roderick said to me, I said, we're doing a reading this show at the Arts Centre. It's just going to be us on stools, no bullshit, really simple, with the narrator reading stage directions. He said, the staging of that you will always find, you will always hold in your heart as the best version. I was like, it's going to be great when we add all the bells and whistles. I'm just talking about the staging here, not the casting.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't listening.
That version of the show had a narrator as well, Casey Bonetto, did read the stage directions.
If you asked me what it was like to see the show go on after the Arts Centre, bittersweet is probably too generous a word, probably more bitter.
The lights dim, a spotlight comes up.
darkest night, in chalky ash of children's fright. I don't know what you think you do, behold.
And so Megan fell away, and we were sort of left in the lurch a bit because we already had this small season booked in. We needed someone, so a friend of ours, Melissa Madden-Gray, stepped in and did it for us and did a great job. Did save the day for us.
Melissa, who we were very lucky to work with, she was pretty much the original dragon, I guess, in terms of performances.
I kind of like that whole format of delivery of the read and the magic that came out of that.
That's what her fire is for, until the day she is dead, and so it is that all who go to that secret place are burned to ash.
Ash. Hot. Sexy sort of thing. Double entendre.
I think you're immune to knowledge.
She brought a grand, mythic, dangerous dragon to the table. And she was an absolute joy to work with and a real pro.
And the play reading worked so well, and yes, we made a pretty schmick play reading because we put something like 58 lighting cues into it and something like 20 sound cues into it as well. So it was a great piece of theatre.
Look, I love the reading because again, that was even more sitting around a table, just a group of friends sitting around a table. It wasn't a complete show, it was just a reading. So I loved the feel of that bit of work.
But did you like my song?
The word ballad has the word all and bad in it.
My original understanding was that, I was playing the narrator and Mel Madden-Gray was playing the dragon in those original readings. And then the show, I heard about the American excursion. It was going over to be workshopped in, remind me, where?
Masmoka, where?
And that sounded like a tremendous opportunity, and I thought this is going to be great. It's going to be a chance to realise the work and have it premiere internationally, which is going to be terrific. In my case, having put quite a bit into the script, quite a bit into the songs and the structure. Yeah. Doing quite a lot to enhance the work. Well, create the work in part.
Melissa, we didn't sort of ask for
No.
long. We just I just sort of assumed that she was way too, talented and busy and things doing her own stuff to ever join us on the journey.
Whereas we needed someone with a more medium amount of talent.
Yeah.
Medium amount of talent.
Enter E. Stone.
Someone who could learn, someone who could gain experience.
Just like
something to put on a
very sort of basic level of workmanlike sort of
Someone you
ability.
could chisel away at into
we could
product.
fashion into something acceptable.
Chip.
Yeah.
See, Melissa was that kind of
She's
good.
ready to go.
Ready and
Yeah.
just
She came out fully formed.
Fully formed.
Yeah.
And hard to kind of chip at.
And then I heard that the roles of the narrator and the dragon had been conflated, and I thought, well, there's a major plus for me, a major opportunity, because it would mean I would get to play the dragon as well as the narrator, something which I'd love to do. And I reckon I can really bring my own sort of vitality to that. And then you hear that Elana Stone has been cast in both roles, and you're walking away with nothing.
Yeah, what was it? Because I think the first thing was it was the D&D the opera was the first, and I go, I'm only going to get an opera.
We were going to call the show Dungeons and Dragons the Opera. We really liked that title. We thought it was funny, and we thought that it sort of said everything.
No, I think Tripod's Ring would be much better.
Dungeons and Dragons is owned by a company called Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro, which is owned by Oprah Winfrey.
And there she goes now.
Hey, it's the Sea Police. You'll never catch us.
It certainly made me a bit paranoid, and our friend in the States, JB, who helped us a lot with a particular phase of the show, was He didn't want to step on any toes either in that department.
So our lawyers advised us against calling a show if we hadn't got approval.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
After trying to do all the right things of like calling them and sending outside their house in our cars and kidnapping their children and, like going through the appropriate channels, they never got back to us. So we've still got a kid in our basement, starting to stink a bit.
It's just that there are so many directions in which a game can go that it was probably an advantage that the show couldn't use that title in the end and got to focus on Tripod versus the Dragon, which after all was the right way to go with the show, to actually bring it down to particular characters.
So we kind of bailed on the Dungeons and Dragons the opera thing, which really says it so succinctly. And it became this other thing, Tripod versus a Dragon. And there were some other names on the table as well, but Tripod versus Dragon makes sense, I suppose, in the sense of...
What were the other names?
I always liked Bard.
Oh, and one of the other ones suggested by our old manager was Die. Is that his idea?
Die. A 20-sided musical or something.
Oh, that's quite good.
Do you like that?
Well, I mean, I guess it's hard hitting,
I never liked it.
I guess...
I didn't mind it.
It made sense. Well, I didn't mind it because it was a pun on not only was it, die as in die, but dice, but in that first draft, which was the one we were peddling around at the time, which is the one we tried to sell to the opera, the key moment is when the DM tries to kill one of the characters and she won't die. So he's saying die to her and she won't do it.
That role, that dragon thing, with that first appearance was always engineered right from the start to... You're supposed to take your breath away. And
like it was supposed to just feel like another Tripod show, and then I think originally we weren't even going to show that there was another cast member until then.
Yeah. Well, that's it. No, and the girl was in a sort of ethereal presence in the show, rather than an active kind of participant.
My name is Elana Stone, no middle name, and I am the dragon in Tripod versus the Dragon.
Happy to be.
Very happy to be. Wouldn't want to be any other character.
Oh, hang on, is it taping?
I think it's going to take off because it's such a futuristic concept, the key bard.
Go on.
I mean, it's a bard that plays the keys, and it's also like a keyboard.
How is it a bard?
I just got a call from Scott, and I think I was just at home. He thinks I'm on the road, so I'm just going with that. I was on the road.
I called up Elana and I think you were on the road from somewhere to somewhere else. Yeah.
I don't really remember. I'm just on the road so much.
And I said, what are you doing?
Just that white line cruising down, just all blurs into one. He was like, do you want to do this musical? And I was like, in my head I was just like, yes. But out loud I was like, maybe just, send me the script and I'll have a read.
Yeah, so I'm sort of having these conversations with Elana, and sort of transpires that, no, you're not all mates, and she was just really confused about what the whole thing was about. And
some 30-something geek that you only barely know calls you up and said, what are you doing for the first half of the next year?
Oh, you know Tripod? Yeah. Well, we've got this play and we're really keen for you to be in it. All right. Oh.
And you said yes because you had road madness.
Straight away.
You had road madness. No, you didn't. She didn't. No, you didn't. You said I'll be interested in that. And you said, can you send a script? So we sent a script.
The script was very long at that point, and it took me a couple of days to read. At that stage, the script was wordier than it is now.
Oh yeah.
There was problems at that point. A lot of it was like dialogue that I think you guys would have jammed at the time, like just kind of quite ad-libby, and it was really hilarious, but it was also like all in the delivery. Like to read it is very different than to see it. I just thought this is going to be good because I can see how these guys just work really well together. I didn't know how I was going to really fit into that. To be honest, at that point I'd put out this album and I'd sort of poured 3 years into it and loved it and made this beautiful thing. I toured it a little bit and then kind of ran out of money, and then just went, oh, I'm exhausted. I just need to like ride on somebody's coattails for a little while, as fucked as that sounds. So there was an element of that in there that was just like, this just came along at the perfect time for me. It just seemed like a good thing, and a really different thing, and a way to sort of tap into some kind of different audience and stuff. But it turned out to be so much more than that.
It was a radio play at that point in time, really, and we performed it as such, and it worked beautifully. However, it had to go beyond that. And I suppose that was the exciting thing, is actually having that opportunity of going to MassMocha, to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Massachusetts, to actually be given, it was an extraordinary experience, to be given 2 weeks full-time facilities of a theatre, an entire crew who was simply just sitting there waiting for us and would say to us, what would you like us to do today to help you achieve what you want to achieve? That was extraordinary.
I loved it. I mean, it was like magical times. We just had this like house in the snow, and we just worked. I mean, it's a dream. Like, that's what I want. I want to be able to work all day on art. Like, work like a job, and we worked like from 9 till probably 10. Oh no, probably not 9. Probably 12 hours a day or something. And then we'd have dinner and then just stay up all night, sort of cutting out props and talking about the story, and you know, it just we made it. Like, the 4 of us just had to. I mean, it was obviously it was already there, but we had to kind of work out how to get it from the page to the stage. And that was so much fun. It's just like forcing you to come up with brilliant shit. And I think we did. In MassMocha, we certainly were relaxed and had fun, and good stuff came out of that.
The improvisational element that is D&D also informed a lot of the drama stuff that I did when I was, especially in school and stuff. How can you make a mood in a room? You know, by just turning off some lights and draping some cloth over something and putting a bit of smoke in there. That kind of stuff was my interest in theatre. And D&D sort of fits hand in glove with that, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of trying to create those environments.
3 friends on the quest, you know, come over a rise and a giant valley with a tower in the middle of it, you know, is beyond. So those kinds of things were in the script, and as a director, I kind of got to think, how do you make that come alive, especially when your brief is, we don't have any money?
How are we going to use the stage? Or like, okay, planets can be, exercise balls can become planets in Lady Robots, or bits of fluorescent cardboard are video game sprites.
That's sort of an aesthetic we've had all along, which is have the biggest possible idea and then try and stage it with limited resources.
Yeah. And I thought, well, yeah, if we have to make something really, really big, if we need to make, you know, a 5 metre high wizard appear on stage, what's the best way of doing that? And a giant dragon, you know, that fries everyone's eyebrows off, you know, it's and it is a suitcase show, so one thing that packs into a suitcase is a very large piece of theatrical linen.
Neill took on a lot of different roles because of our skeleton crew, and one of them was designing the show. So we had a design presentation in the Tripod Clubhouse. He came in, we still got it. He even had the miniature theatre. He had done all this work. He was like, this is how we're going to do the show. We're going to do it with a big sheet. We're going to have an overhead at the back. We're going to project onto the front, which was something we've lost in the process for various reasons. So it's going to be, you know, front projection, back projection, some lights at the back that we can play with shadows, and a piano here and a stool there.
You hit the right balance, I think, in terms of theatrical, simple theatrical staging. You know, you know, the use of the overhead projector and all that sort of stuff. Again, keeps it grounded in what it fundamentally is. It keeps it true to sitting around a table and rolling dice.
Cutting things, throwing things out, is the best way to go. And especially, this is a self-generated play. It's not like getting an extant script given to you and then you have to honour the playwright's vision of it. And I've never been very good at that.
Actually, there was a few key changes. One of them, there's a few. In that version, the dragon only lived inside the story. She wasn't the DM as well. She was just in the story.
I think the addition of making her a dungeon master gave that role a lot more gravitas or something. That this is her story. That she's cast herself as the dragon, as the love interest. I think there's a lot more in that.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a bit less sexist too than just having some ethereal.
Yeah, there is that.
I agree. Well, I think we've still managed to make it pretty sexist. But
it's a lot better than Lady Robots, where the love interest was.
She was evil.
She was evil.
She used her
wily ways.
Yeah. She used her physical attractiveness to trick me, to manipulate me.
Yeah.
Business is slow.
We are in a map shop. The back wall is a projection of the shop display. Every map ever made, a hodgepodge of different kinds of maps.
So that's one change. Secondly, and this is the one that I really kind of missed, we didn't just start the adventure by seeing a map and going off on an adventure. We were, in grandest tradition of Lord of the Ringsy, Harry Pottery, Gormless, person living in a nowhere life. We were in a little village, we ran a map shop, and we weren't the adventurers. All these other people came and left, right? Buying maps from us and then heading off on adventures. But we were the only ones who had all the maps. So we were the only ones that spotted that there's actually one missing. Like, why isn't there a map of that bit there? Which I think would have been a beautiful graphic, this world map made up of all these little maps, just with one missing. And it just helped establish the stakes. The Art Centre version had that in it. It was all about the map shop, and it came back to the map shop after the dragon died. It came back to the map shop and we were rich. We'd gotten the whole map and we were selling this, and I was counting my money, and Gatesy was adventurer for hire who was just hired to kill minotaurs and stuff, and he had all this blood on his hands and kind of, anyway.
You're lounging around a counter, bored. The counter has a sign saying, pay here, and a cup which contains a pen.
It was very sort of fourth wall-y. It was like you could see these people just sort of sitting around having banal conversations, which was kind of didn't work theatrically.
You've got Scott, Jon and Gatesy playing Dungeons and Dragons. They start as three mates who work in a map shop. And the first scene was us bored in a map shop.
Bored. B or R-end. Bored. 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 Are you bored? I'm bored. Are you bored? Yes, I am actually.
Yeah. Never start a show with three people who are bored.
Unless you're extraordinarily good at it. Extraordinarily good at... No, I think you're good at it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think you really excel at being bored.
Yeah. I've got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yes, I do miss it very much.
Well, Blow This Town, I always liked it. Pretty much because it was my idea, I think. And it was this song that Gatesy sings after he's killed the dragon. He's really angry.
He comes into the shop, right, and he's like, I got hired to go and, kill these minotaurs.
And so he wants to write this sort of angsty song, just fuck everyone,
And he's like, you're level 20, you would have kicked their ass. He's like, no, I tried to sing my song. They just laughed at me. And then I tried to sing it at the tavern later, and they just laughed at me. What's going on,
But because he's a Hmong, the hook of the song is, I'm going to blow this town. So, of course, it doesn't quite have the effect that he had in mind. Yeah, so that shits me. It shits me when you think something's really funny, but for some reason, it just doesn't come across, and that's what happened.
See the snow? It's going
Snow.
It's beautiful.
That's real.
Fill us in on what's going on now, Jan.
We're choreographing Don't Feel Bad.
Who's the head choreographer?
Elana over there is going to tell us
How it's going to work?
She's got a vision.
Yeah.
And we just have to...
Having just that different counterpoint to you guys it just makes it so much stronger. I think it just so I think she's added a fantastic dimension to the piece and to the whole show and just how it's staged and all that stuff. And I think she's embraced it in the true spirit of how it needs to be embraced.
Don't Feel Bad choreography. I love being able to dance, and the cool thing is I get to dance behind a sheet, so it kind of takes away a layer of the self-awareness that you may have dancing, just without the sheet in front of you. So you can really cut sick.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. There's Elana. There's Elana. She's pretty cool.
I suppose so.
Yeah. When she's not fucking about. with Elana, you mentioned Elana before.
The fifth cog.
Fifth cog.
Well, in the big cog drives the, cogs drive the engine, don't they? Well, on a bike, a cog goes into the thing to drive the wheels.
Right.
So she's a cog.
Cog, you say?
Isn't it a cog? Is that the word? You're looking at me like...
You guys can actually be on stage and talk and respond to things in the room and not even have to think about it. And it's 15 years of training there with 3 people together. It was very interesting to watch Elana come in to try to take on and be a part of that repartee as well, either with the audience or with you guys.
It's a bit annoying, that scene where I can't do comebacks when Scott says no hamburgers allowed, and then Jon just beats me in the size department, and then I just have to cop it. Sweet. Hate that bit. Hurts.
I think Elana proved herself to be quite hard to chip out in the end.
Oh, God, just chip.
She seems chippable at the start.
Can you just chip? Please. I'm chipping at you.
Yeah, I do. I struggle with that a lot. Because basically I'm just hungry for people's affection, and I want them to laugh at me. And I want to be able to be weird and quirky, but I have to just be this beautiful, mythical goddess, which I'm certainly not. So I just like to every so often do something spontaneous that just fucks up the whole show.
An absolute revelation.
And every single review has singled Elana out, because some people haven't liked the show, but they've always liked Elana. Even the one that referred to her as Yoko, at the same time, acknowledged how great she was.
How'd you go, boss?
Oh, how did we go?
Yeah.
We well, it was the night before opening night, and we did a run through, and I think it was the first time we did. Don't walk away from me.
Hey, look at them. They won't even look us in the eye.
This is Tim. This is Matt. This is Nick. Nick is all about trouble. He makes trouble. He lives trouble. He is trouble. Look at that guy. Excellent.
So, how'd it go?
Yeah, it went pretty smoothly, but it's still at the point where it's just stressful. It's because there's a lot to remember, and there were moments where I actually was there, and an actual guy in a made-up world, but mostly it's like, what the fuck's next? Where's that little guy? Where's that little cutout guy? Where did I put the spear?
Soon
Is
you'll
it
be
okay if I put my trumpet here?
Once we get into it, you know, once you know the show, you'll be able to get back to it just being able to wander off.
Yeah. And then
Just
I
be
can
able
just
to-
start thinking about what I'm going to have for supper.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. What am I
You'll be
going to do
back.
tomorrow?
Yeah.
We just tapped into a veritable treasure trove.
It's very dark out here.
Of nerd kingdom.
I think Elana might have signed on for some scary new stalkers.
I'm so excited. I just can't hide it.
There was a kid there with an actual broadsword that he made out of wood. Got us to sign it.
I felt like I couldn't lie to them because I've never played before, and they were all expecting me to be this Dungeons and Dragons player, and I just was looking them in the eye and just going, I can't tell them. It's just too hard. We've come too far already.
We'll just have to play some in Adelaide.
One more thing about Elana and that Mass Smoker experience, which was so great. Can't see it actually working with anyone else during that time. Elana's kind of enthusiasm was just really ace.
But if anyone else was sitting here right now,
I'd probably,
my name with theirs.
if you weren't sitting here, I'd probably be more gushing. But because you're here, I'm just sort of, yeah,
So
she's all
don't
right.
go anywhere. Something could happen.
Our hearts were heavy as we bid a fond farewell to North Adams.
See you, North Adams. Bye.
See you, Adams.
Bye, wonderful place. The grant application read thusly. This will be a fantastic opportunity to hatch a show that is totally atypical of what we do in an environment that has no expectations of our prior work. That is exactly what happened, right? We did this show that was out of the box for us, to a bunch of people that walked in the room wanting to see a show about D&D and not giving a shit that it was tripod. And it went off. It was a corker of an evening, right? For whatever reason, it was an amazing experience. And it sold its ass off, standing on its head. It was like in the middle of nowhere. It was in a snowy wasteland, not in a capital city. No one had ever heard of us, and it sold like 700 seats on one night. So that was, in that sense, it really fulfilled the brief. But then, of course, it came back, and we had to go, okay, Australia, this is what we've made. And Australia went 2 stars.
If people are open to, if they're open to those offers that come, then it works well. And if they're not, then that's where it starts becoming a little bit more difficult, and that's where people, and then if people don't engage, then obviously they're not interested in it. That's the challenge as a DM, is being open to that, to the signals that the players are giving you, and then giving them the experience that they kind of are interested in.
So we're watching the show to try and remind ourselves how it goes.
Yeah.
Is it all coming back to you guys?
It's like watching something for the first time.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I don't know how we're going to remember it. How are you enjoying this
I
experience?
didn't realise just how good the show was. Because you don't when you're doing it. Yeah. Well, only when you look back on it from a little shitty camera at the back of the theatre, with the audio just coming through some desk, you realise just how good the show is.
It's a real experience, this.
When we did the premiere in Massachusetts, it went nuts. Like, we had a standing ovation. Like, the response was the best we've ever had for any show we've done. And then we came and did it in Adelaide, and it was really dying the first few shows.
Where are the funny pub songs? Yeah.
It was a massive blow to the confidence. You know, we'd put all this lead up to it that corresponded with all these other changes that were going on in our lives and whatnot.
It was really painful. We got kind of a harsh review.
Yoko Ono?
Yeah, they called Lani Yoko Ono in the Adelaide Advertiser review.
Which is a bit unfair because, you know, she's a great artist, and and she is famous. No, but but it was like he'd committed some sort of blasphemy.
Yeah.
Like the whatever what the Tripod fans had come to expect. You guys had just gone too far this time.
In the inexorable shorteningness of this show to try and fit it into festivals, we had to lose like heaps of it, not just like 10 minutes. We had to lose 45 minutes of the show. Most of it was, you didn't miss it. It was extraneous.
Darker. It was much darker, and we still had the argument after the dragon battle.
There's quite a dramatic scene after the killing of the dragon between the three of us. Really, like Gatesy and Scott have this sort of shouting match, and then I guilt Scott. And it wasn't music. It wasn't a song at that stage. It was all just dialogue.
Which again is kind of strange because it all happens within a game. Do you know what I mean? No one's actually.
Well, that's true.
No one's life is at stake here.
Yeah.
No one's. It's been a really strange balancing act to that.
It was just a bit plotting. It had some energy problems, and it was a bit too long, and you couldn't quite tell what was going on in the third act. It was confusing.
It's a bit confusing.
What?
The finale. The end. We used to cut between the wizard.
That whole section, you mean?
Yeah, and Gatesy's journey to Hades. We just cut between like a Lucas film.
And the twin wizards. Yeah. Like at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
Going from Endor to the Emperor.
Then
to Lando.
Yeah. But it didn't work.
Certainly, like the show had to become more of a comedy. It had to be more consistently funny once we kind of got back to Australia.
I think perhaps we just tried one too many not funny songs. Like there's a lot of really great songs that I'm really proud of in the show, but if, people have come in expecting the songs to be funny. It's all very well to have ambitions to move the goalposts, but at the end of the day, it's not easy to get it over the line if you just take it that bit too far.
The Australian audience expected jokes. They basically they were just fizzing at the bunghole for jokes. If you're singing a song that's not necessarily making them piss themselves, but you're not doing your job,
I think it's funny, I think only someone like you could pull off Ivory Tower in that bit. It could be perhaps because we've been doing comedy for so long that to stand on stage and just out of nowhere deliver a beautiful, serious song. It kind of needed that fourth person to make that gear shift possible, which we then do later in the show. You develop this lust for laughs that it's really hard to shake.
Which ended up being really good because I think when we got a rhythm of like having more consistent jokes in the show, we still got those sections of emotional pathos, but they were funny as well, and so it kind of left people feeling like happy and sad at the same time, which is kind of what you want, isn't it?
I think this often happens with comedians though who try and do something serious. They sort of go too far the other way. They go, oh, this is going to be the serious bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we did, and we all sort of tensed up a bit. And what I like about what we have now, I really like that section now because it is weird and funny, and Scott getting his hat is just bizarre now.
Yeah.
And me singing the guilt trip to him and all that stuff. And you singing your new version of Taking the Life, I really like that section.
A lot of the times, what we said in 3 pages, we've ended up saying in 4 lines or whatever in this version, which I think is always what you want to go for.
It's still affecting. It's just funny at the same time.
I mean, Phil Silvers, the old American comedian, was once asked, how do you write comedy? Or how do you write stand-up comedy? And his answer was, well, you stand up in front of an audience, you talk to them, the stuff they laugh at, you keep, the stuff they don't laugh at, you throw it away and just keep doing that. And there's to some extent there is that, but obviously there's an intellectual construct that has to be applied to that, for a larger theatrical piece.
I think Tripod as a whole is trying to grow, as it always has, grow up and act our age in a strange way. And the older we're getting, the more we appreciate things that aren't so silly or funny, and that's what we kind of tried to integrate into the show.
And I think you naturally go through periods of like wanting to do something that that has import outside of the laughs, you know, like making some sort of point or...
Yeah. People say, like, stand up and, you know, you must be so scary to stand up there and try and be funny, but standing up there and not being funny, that's really hard and really scary.
What's exciting about the kind of performance and the kind of theatre that Tripod can actually make is that it can be funny, it's entertaining, it's hilarious, it brings great respect musically because of Tripod's great skills, and ultimately it can emotionally move people. So you start putting all those packages together, you're looking at a pretty serious piece of theatre.
Ultimately, it was just about getting across a love of the game and not worrying too much about whether people understood how it worked. I don't think you'd come away, if you didn't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think you'd come away knowing what it is from seeing the show. You still don't know what it is.
No, got no idea.
No.
It's not trying to be a, you know, fully animated 3D experience of, you know, Dungeons and Dragons, or it remains true to the kernel of why a lot of people play Dungeons and Dragons, which is that it's a fun story and it's a group of friends sitting around a table, and that, to my mind, that's why it works. You go, I can feel the energy, the heart of it is the same as the game.
A woman came up to me last night here in Brisbane, and she had her sons there and her sons' friends, and they were really nerdy kids, like really awkward kids, and, you know, happy, but like Ducky from Pretty in Pink. You know, like the sort of outcasty, sort of hat-wearing, vest-wearing sort of kids who are like not, you know, necessarily the sort of mainstream. And one of their mums came up to me and said, "Thanks for making a show that tells my son that it's okay to be, you know, different." And I kind of, that was lovely actually. That was a beautiful little affirmation of what I hope people come away from this show. You know, because it is flat out about that. That's what it's about.
Yet one would have to look at it and think, well, you've changed people's minds a lot about, again, taking Tripod to another level of what is capable. And just going back, you know, apropos of the design of the show, the whole idea of the show, you know, Tripod versus the Dragon could have another life altogether with a cast of 15 people and an orchestra. Yeah, you could actually make something like that into a off-Broadway musical.
Would we have to be in it?
No, you wouldn't get through the audition. Sorry.
I've just stopped in the car to kick off this interview and looked down and seen that I've actually got my dress inside out, so I'm going to have to pop back inside and quickly change it.
No, that's been probably my favourite thing about doing this show is I've never really done a show where I've gotten to perform the same thing every night. And it's a really good thing to be able to cross-reference your performance against itself.
You're the cool one in this show. You're
cool. I'm probably the coolest character in it. Bothers me a little bit.
Every day you get to do the exact same thing and everything else is chaos.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that element of consistency.
Are you suggesting that you're consistent?
No.
Proud of being involved in getting this play off the page and actually onto the stage and being an integral cog in that, I guess.
By the way, just for context, just so you guys know, this isn't like some weird gender role thing where Elana's here cooking dinner.
Too late.
It's not.
We haven't
the picture we're trying to.
It was kind of like another show within a show idea, wasn't it?
Yes.
Really, that we didn't want to do this time. We didn't want to do a show within a show.
I didn't.
Yeah. She actually just was cooking, you know.
But it actually was happening.
She was hungry. It was after the show. It's after the show. I only had some pasta.
They make me cook every night, so it's
pretty normal. That's not. No, that's what I'm saying.
It's
that's
pretty
not.
normal that I would be doing.
That's not what's going on.
I just don't want them to think I'm Yoko Ono. That's what I want.
I hope they can see through the bullshit.
Even before you arrived, I really just enjoyed the idea of writing songs that someone else would sing that wasn't us. That was really fun.
Oh,
tripod. Oh, those guys.
It's like, imagine a picture of us, you know, like some vision of us singing with me talking over the top and then that going on as well. It'd just be confusing.
I've still got some spew in my nose.
I'm hoping we still do an orchestra version of it at some point.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, let's not
bag him out yet.
Cut our
It's not his fault. It's not his fault that we came up with an idea that
he couldn't sell.
That no one can sell.
It's in everybody's interest to have beautiful, moving, funny, clever theatre, isn't it?
I liken it in a way to I don't know, cricket. Like, you're going to make a theatre show about cricket and you're trying to tell the audience what it's like to play cricket. The only way to know what it's like is to actually play cricket because it's that different.
Yeah, I thought you could write a musical about cricket, but you can't. It can't be done.
No, I think that it kind of is that normal petrol.
Oh, that's Go Gas. I think we're at a taxi.
No, the juice is gone.
No more
That's
juice.
for sure.
No more juice.
The friend juice.
And are these your books?
No. I don't even live here.
You know,
It's really
It'd be
interesting.
great to be on the same list as. Shall we do Cats or Dungeons and Dragons the opera?
Yeah. Or Godspell.
Yeah.
Cogs and wheels. She's a cog. She's a dirty, filthy cog.
You know my biggest regret, Elana?
What?
Is that we never played D&D together.
Oh.
As a group. We never did it.
Well, it's not over till it's over.
Oh, that's pretty over.
What the fuck? We're going to Poland.
That's
Play
true.
Dungeons and Dragons in Poland.
That'd be pretty fun, actually. Good
Do
point.
they wear capes there?